There you go.
All right.
Outside.
We are live, guys, for another week of DCA. I'm here with InvestAnswers, CTO, and we have MartyParty coming back for another week by popular demand. It's great to see you guys again. I think it's been a crazy week, particularly over the last few days, but it's looking good. I think a lot of our predictions for buy the dip from last week are in the money. Crypto is generally looking up only this morning. How are you guys all doing? We'll start with you, James.
Yeah, it's been an incredible reversal in a very short window of time. There were events over the weekend that triggered a lot of this move as well. Not only do we have a couple of things like Germany flushing their complete bag, but also a lot of acquisitions by others, Wales, Mr. 100, etc. And then we had, of course, the weekend events. It was, I think, in one 24-hour period, I posted last night on Twitter, Bitcoin went up $4,500 in 24 hours, and it's up another $1,000 since then. So it's $5,500 in, say, 32 hours. And that is a big move, but everything is really strong right now. I mean, it's rare you see everything moving in the same direction. And the question is, why? Like Tesla, MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, Solana, everything is going this way. So that's good.
Yeah, vertical going up. I know, CTO, you've been looking a little bit smug. You posted your buys in our group chat last week, post our conversations. How's everything looking for you? I feel like you probably had to ignore the charts a little bit because we did break very violently through that resistance.
Yeah, and I want to give a lot of credit to both you, Mando, and Marty as well, and of course James. But we know each other for a long time. But I think you both gave me two great perspectives last episode. Marty, you talked about that this is actually a textbook Wyckoff manipulation. You run the price below support, little bit below the previous lows to trigger exit, and then you run it all the way back. And Mando, you said that it's important to realize when there is a technical event like this, while the market conditions are very favorable, then you shouldn't wait until the technical event has ended. In this case, it was the Germany selling, but perhaps 2/3 in or something like that. That's probably when the rallying will start, which is exactly what happened. So a lot of credit, and that's why I love these shows. We have different perspectives, and I always learn a lot, and I'm looking forward to today's show. My objective to learn from you, 3 people here today, is this pump, is this like the Trump pump as a result of the horrible events, or is it a result of other things? You know, Germany finished selling, macro conditions, or what is causing this pump? That's what my objective for today, to try to really understand that.
And it's good to have you back again, Marty. I see you're wearing the Axe Capital t-shirt. Loving it. I love that show. How are you doing? How are you feeling about the market today?
I'm great. Yeah, it was a crazy weekend. We were doing a large space when the whole thing happened, obviously watching the Trump thing. And so it was just outrageous. And then the reactions, as I say, crypto is sort of the pulse of the world now, 24/7. So like literally anything happens, you can literally see the pulse in crypto, which I think is becoming a great narrative for the world. I find it to be very interesting. But yeah, as I say, I think it's derivative run, and they were playing the Wyckoff and they were looking for a catalyst. They used the German sell-off, obviously, as a great narrative to support the downward movement. And then literally the second the Germans were sold out, the next 2 days later, Trump attempted assassination, and off we go, exactly at the 54,800 max pain, like on the Wyckoff. So it just seems like it may be related. Everyone's always asking me, Marty, why? And I always say the same thing. Price makes narrative. If the price moves, there's 1,000 narratives the next day. Who knows really whether anything really influenced it, but at the end of the day, it's always great when it moves up. But yeah, I think the Trump thing is bigger than we realize.
Yeah,
definitely people were donating to Trump in Bitcoin, and those initial pulses were large orders in Bitcoin, which I think triggered the algorithms to do the actual Wyckoff turn.
So there were a number of narratives. I agree with you. Price narratives follow price. I would say that there were some black swans, some unpredictable stuff this week. Obviously, we'll touch upon the Trump assassination. Germany is done selling. There's a lot of bullish news this morning, in particular, coming out of Asia, with some news out of China, Korea, Russia. This week, ETC, or last week at the ETC, this week, there's a lot of predictions that we'll have the ETF. We're going to go into that a little bit. Some very bullish news around RWAs coming out of Goldman Sachs and MakerDAO. SEC gave up its fight against stablecoins, and also some huge growth of PayPal. I know CTO might want to touch upon that. We're going to talk about maybe some projects you should look at in the second half of this year if you're trying to move on from the farming of things like Blast. Then we'll move into macro. So the correlation with tech is kind of at an all-time low, or very, very close to multi-year low. Does that really matter? Then talk maybe a little about Tesla and AI to finish with. But obviously the word on everyone's lips today, I think, has been Trump, the Trump rally, the Trump pump. Crazy few days, particularly in America. You obviously saw an attempted assassination event. You saw initially crypto slightly dipped and then kind of immediately went to 60K, which has been a bit of a pain point, I think, for where we're going to decide if we're going to go higher or lower. We spoke about that as a key resistance point on the way down even. And then came about Sunday night when it looked as though macro was also going to rally. We started to move violently higher. Bitcoin is now hanging out around 63K. So it's a raised many weeks of down move there. Solana's above 150. ETH is obviously hanging out just above 3,200. So a very strong move, kind of an equal move across the three majors. I put as the question here, is Sol the real winner? And the only reason I said that was because of the ETF. It's now looking like on Polymarket that 70% chance that Trump goes in. And that's the only real one where there will be questions about whether it's going to be a security or not. What are you looking at here, James? Like, what are you looking at across majors, and what did you make of all the Trump headlines?
Yeah, it was very shocking. I was actually right on it first. Nobody knew what happened. I mean, CNN reported that he fell over and hit his head. I mean, this was the weekend, I think, where mainstream media literally died. And you can see the desperation coming out of kind of their lips and their posts. And you got this Lies man, LIES man from CNBS, literally saying, I'm going to break my silence, and says terrible things about Elon Musk and then deletes his tweet afterwards. That's just embarrassing. You know, if you put something out there, don't delete it. Anyway, it was a very shocking event. It was actually a miracle that a certain person is still alive. We're talking a game of millimeters and milliseconds. A slight pivot to a teleprompter is what saved his life. And the security was extremely lax. So there's a lot of questions, and it probably gave birth to another 1,000 conspiracy theories. But fingers crossed. I'm very sorry for the people that, you know, I think one is critically injured, one is dead. Very sorry about that. Just a shocking situation. This type of stuff should not happen. But I think back to what we care about is alpha. It's pretty clear that, you know, Trump is embracing crypto, which is good for the space. Trump will embrace rate cuts, which would be good for the space. Trump is pro-innovation, good for the space. Trump will swap out Jerome Powell and Gary Gensler, good for the space. So that's kind of what I see.
And interesting, like, that it's tough not to talk about this. Like, yes, you had the Republican convention going on this week, but the next big Trump speech is actually at Bitcoin Nashville, which he's confirmed that he is going to be talking at. So this just shows you how intertwined crypto and Trump, but also politics, has been this cycle. I mean, I was thinking when I woke up, like, God forbid, what had happened if he actually had been assassinated? Where do you reckon Bitcoin would have gone? Where do you reckon markets would have gone? Because it just feels as though I woke up and I thought we could have gone to
Civil war
below 20K. We could have. It really did feel like that. You know, it's a spark that could have lit up America. That you could have seen uprisings throughout the US over the weekend, and we saw how we reacted to, you know, Israel and Iran trading missiles. This I think could have been a wick which would have liquidated most of the market. Did anyone else think about that? Like, how crazy it could have been when you woke up on Saturday, or when you saw the headlines?
I mean, I think that something we haven't spoken about that I think is even bigger than any of this is the Chevron deference. You guys know about that? The Supreme Court ruling last week on Thursday.
Yep. Huge.
Basically saying that the courts will now decide on all rulings themselves and not defer to the three-letter agencies. And the important thing about that is, take the SEC, for instance. All of the things the SEC has been deferred to with regards their assumptions and declarations in these lawsuits with Ripple, Coinbase, declaring things securities, even the notion that crypto is a security, literally is now thrown out the window. So I believe we're going to see Ripple and Coinbase probably get thrown out. Literally, we're already seeing BUSD instantly thrown out, Paxos thrown out. We saw it's the end of the SEC. As of today, I believe all crypto is no longer a security. And on a case-by-case basis, will have to be proven to be a security. And to me, that is also massive bullish news, which we'll see play out now going over the next weeks and months. But I just want to bring that up. I think the Chevron deference is something the mainstream media and most of crypto Twitter doesn't even know about. And I mean, if it wasn't for my crypto legal friends, I wouldn't know about it either. But I've read through the Supreme Court ruling, and it's clear as day. Pretty much going forward, all agency declarations will be revoked. And the first one that comes to mind will be the SEC.
And I know a lawyer in his 70s.
In the streets on that.
Yeah. A friend of mine is a lawyer in his 70s. He says it's the single biggest legal event that has ever happened in his lifetime. 70 plus years.
Look at that. And you don't even hear about it anyway.
No.
So I did see headlines about it, that the SEC obviously was going to have limited powers. Perhaps I didn't read into the severity of how that was going to lead to a bunch of different court cases. Obviously, you've seen, and we're going to get onto it, they dropped some court cases already this week and basically claimed that we didn't even mean to do them. They basically tried to back away from them very, very quickly. But it would be interesting because obviously they have outstanding court cases against pretty much every major exchange. Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, a number of different smaller exchanges, as well as a number of different, and that really relates to the issuance of securities, and then a number of different DeFi protocols, including Uniswap, for example. They have a very, very high-profile case against, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But if they are going to be restricted, then that is how the SEC has been regulation by enforcement. We'd have to then see, in my eyes, a full sweeping set of regulations to come out of Congress in the next term.
Well, the great news, Mando, is the way that this will resolve is that all assumptions made based on the three-letter agencies will be removed from all suits, and the courts will bring in experts in the domain to make the decision. And that's just going to be a landslide because you can't prove that a open source software artifact has any counterparty between two humans. So there's no way a crypto token is a security. If there's a backing legal agreement notarized by lawyers that says the contract address here relates to the stock holdings of this registered company signed by a legal firm, that's a security. But the actual token was never a security. It can't be a security. So I think that narrative is really at risk. That crypto is a security is going to get afuera, as they would say in Milei would say.
Well, that would be huge.
Afuera.
That would be huge. I think the CFTC, they are, there's lighter regulations, I think, although they still would ask for some regulations, but that would really change the narrative. I think the big story that came out, when we went live last week, Germany was still in the midst of selling. It accelerated its selling. We said that was a technical trade, that would get cleaned up. It did get cleaned up by Friday. They were all out. Obviously, the next move is now to look at Mt. Gox. They have just over 10 billion, it looks like, of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash mainly to go. Do we think anyone really needs to worry about that now? And also, I guess the second part of that question is, are there any other pockets of supply? We saw Genesis, it came out last week that they also had sold 750 million. People weren't necessarily aware of it. Is there any other pockets of supply people have identified that we're worried about, or is it everything kind of out there now? Like, do you think we rally once Mt. Gox even begins to make its distributions because people will know what's coming?
I think
I
regarding
mean, yeah, I can. You can come around to me.
regarding Genesis, they're doing that OTC, so it doesn't impact the markets because they know exactly how to do that without dumping their price, unlike Germany. Regarding Mt. Gox, all the Bitcoin Cash will be sold, and a lot of the OGs will hang on to it. So I don't expect a huge dump from Mt. Gox. It'll also be trickled out over 3 to 4 years. It's not coming big bang like 50,000 Bitcoin from Germany in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So it'll be very different. I think, fingers crossed, no more major dumpage so far.
Marty, you shared a very interesting thought. Was it yesterday that it's not even clear? Is it clear that how much they will distribute, or could they go back and say that actually we're going to distribute based on the fiat value?
CTO, on the space, we had a Japanese listener come forward and say that it's been very misunderstood, and that Japan has now ruled that under their bankruptcy law, they can pull the same stunt as FTX. And that is that they will pay people back at the value of Bitcoin in April 2014, which has not been well documented because it's, a double whammy for the poor creditors. But at the end of the day, it means, Bitcoin is $483 in 2014. So if you calculate the entire payment at that value, it comes to about 0.08 Bitcoin per Bitcoin they'll get paid, but only around $400 million total, including the Bitcoin Cash. So it's no longer billions of dollars. It's 400 million, which is nothing.
That would be a rug pull, I think, but that would be. I mean, I don't know that much about Japanese bankruptcy law.
My fear is bigger than that. I believe that it's obviously a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but I believe that Japan, who will keep the balance of the Bitcoin? Will it be Mt. Gox, or will Japan annex it? And if Japan annexes it, then they may be a seller like Germany to peg their currency. So that would be even a bigger risk to me than Mt. Gox, is if Japan uses that bankruptcy law to enforce that they, in fact, now hold that the remaining Bitcoin that is not paid back to creditors.
Do you think they're going to dump it?
They have a big incentive to sell.
Yeah, maybe to save the yen, but maybe they have a bigger incentive to actually have some good stuff in their reserves.
Absolutely, that could make the right choice.
CTO, like we touched upon it as the show went live, but I think a lot of chartists got hurt this week. They perhaps they were waiting to see if that 60K resistance held, and it held there for a little bit of time over the weekend, and then we moved very violently higher as we broke above 60K on the 1 week candle. And I think a lot of people were left there doing nothing at 55K, hoping to get in at 60K, and then it moved violently higher overnight, and they've woken up to 63K. What do the charts tell you now across those three majors?
Yeah, exactly. So if I can share the screen here, I think a very interesting level developed here, which was at 58,265. You can see that there was actually buying pressure all these days here. But each time price crossed that, it got punched down again. So it was 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5, 6, 7 days in a row. Each time, price rejected and got pushed down once it reached above that level. But on the 8th day, it broke through. And then it just continued. There was no resistance. The resistance was there. And once that broke, there was nothing left. So it just cut through the previous 60K or 60,800 as I had it, like butter. There was no resistance left. The big selling was actually down here. So I think that was the interesting observation here, this level. And now it looks extremely strong. Now price is just back in the range. It's as if nothing has happened since, when was it? A year plus ago. We're back in the same, sorry, not a year plus ago, but since beginning of the year, almost February. So it's price is just back in the range. Bitcoin looks as strong as ever. I expect these supports to hold again if tested. And I think it looks great. And I think it was really here you see it perhaps clearer than when I mentioned it before, what Marty mentioned, that you kind of run the price below the key support and little bit below the previous lows. That's usually the trick. And then you run it hard back. That's the way. That's the Wyckoff style manipulation. If you don't know who the Wyckoff is, you can Google it. He basically documented 100 years ago how the professionals manipulate price in the markets, and that's the best way to do it. He documented the way so that people are at least aware of what's going on. Still works today, 100 years later, and it's a very useful model to be aware of. And I think that's exactly what we have seen here. So I think it looks strong. I think it looks good. We're kind of back in ranging price action. We need a full breakout for this to kind of launch to the next level. And that's what I'll be watching here. The main resistance I have at 71,400. If we break out that, I think we will do it with a trend up, and that will be then off to the races for the next leg of this big move. If we zoom out, it feels very dramatic here these couple of days, but if we zoom out, we can barely see it. It's like ripple only on the chart, and we're still back in the range. If we break out from this major resistance, this could turn into just a halfway flag or something like that. But of course, that's pure speculation.
Yeah, where I'm looking at from liquidations, they are all still clustered right above the price. It feels like this could be a most hated rally, in my opinion, here. Because how many people got sidelined in that move, and it was suddenly smart to be short or have reduced, and then suddenly we've got this violent move higher, which I think would have been difficult for people to get back into.
Yeah,
I don't know. This is the sort
of
move
that's
again.
The discipline that you have to have. Like, if you want to preserve capital, if you want to be kind of play it safe, if support is lost, if you want to play it safe, because you don't know for sure. Things could have turned out differently over the weekend due to these disastrous events, and the dip could have continued dipping, or something else could have happened. Another country starts selling, Japan starts selling. You never know. So if you want to play defense and you reduce some position, what you have to do if that reverts is to undo. You have to kind of bite the bullet and get back into the position if that happens. Now, I think that this looked pretty strong here, as mentioned before, especially when this one broke. So I think that was the opportunity here. But even if kind of play defense, and you wake up today and realize, oh, wow, price is really back, you have to kind of bite the bullet and realize that the condition that triggered the reduction has been reverted, and then have to kind of go get back in that case, if someone is in that situation, if someone got sidelined, as you said.
Yeah, and the thing about the trade like this is that, and what we spoke about last week, is this, technical selling, a lot of supply came to the market, but then the fundamental buying pressure just keeps coming. Today, we had 3 headlines coming out of Asia, which I know you picked up on, James. But firstly, we had China potentially unbanning crypto. There was a headline on several different Bitcoin accounts saying that they might look to unban crypto in Q4. Secondly, you had a headline coming out of South Korea that they're probably going to delay capital gains for crypto until 2028, which makes Korea a very, very attractive place, which already was very, very high crypto adoption now for crypto investing. And then you had, thirdly, Russia looking to integrate crypto into its exchanges, into the Moscow Stock Exchange. And we've heard rumors about this, that they're trying to integrate stablecoins more, given they haven't got that much access to dollars. But stablecoins are going to be more and more introduced, as well as broader crypto. But 3 huge headlines coming out of Asia and Europe there. Yeah, like this, if you're sitting there sidelined and you see this, we've already had weeks of very, very bullish headlines, which we've been kind of banging our head against the wall, being like, crypto should be higher. And then you have 3 more this morning. It's going to be tough to be sidelined here, don't you think, James?
Yeah, it's it all goes back to the same thing. You can't turn your back on blockchain and crypto. It's the future. You have to embrace it, and if you do not, you die. And even people in China, Russia, South Korea, all over the world, Argentina, you name it, the countries that are actually fighting it are those are the ones that rely on the infinite money printer their big central banks. It is a threat to that. And that's what's really interesting also about other news we heard, which was reiterated again today, that you guys mentioned from something that was mentioned a week or 10 days ago regarding adding some Bitcoin to the US Treasury balance sheet. I mean, if that were to happen, literally global game theory would be into high gear, and people like, what's his name, Samson Mao, $1 million target in a year, he's look really smart all of a sudden. That's how crazy this thing could get. So again, the whole fascination with Bitcoin for me is always about scarcity and game theory. And we could have the second part kick in sooner than we expect.
Which of those three headlines jumped out for you, Marty, when you saw this?
I think the Russians using a stablecoin to circumvent US sanctions is bigger than people realize. The weaponization of the US dollar, and especially the SWIFT network. I don't think people are aware how important SWIFT is to international trade. But Russia is in a real bind with that SWIFT sanction. And if they do turn to crypto, this could elevate crypto rails over BRICS. BRICS might wake up and go, well, why do we have to build our own network? We could just use the public blockchains. I think these are interesting topics. The other point I wanted to make is, once again, I'm an exchange guy. I'm a Binance guy. I believe Binance controls crypto completely. I go back to something CZ said before he went to prison. He pretty much, in a Binance blog, laid out the entire plan for us all to see. And the plan is, we're doing the second fractal. After the halving, you're going to have a pullback, but we're doing the second part of the fractal. So I think right now we're actually in the where we were. If you go to a large weekly Bitcoin chart, if you pull up your chart again, CTO Larsson, if you look in January 2021, go back on a weekly, go back out. January 2021, we were on the second pulse of the three pulses that took us up to 58, the top of that 2021 run. I believe where we are now is simply that same position in the fractal. We're now going to do the second half of the vector, and that'll take us to the 120 range. And CZ pretty much laid that out. I believe, but that Binance, like they're sitting there with an Etch-a-Sketch, okay? They're literally drawing these distributions. And yes, black swans will come and obviously cause low or high wicks and disrupt the distribution here and there. But ultimately, the bots will bring it straight back to where it needs to be. And it can be quite frustrating. And humans obviously love to go, why? But at the end of the day, I believe we're in the second fractal of what we went through in the previous liquidity injection. We're going to see the same thing, just at a higher magnitude. And lo and behold, I'm a big believer in TradingView Pro and their all patterns. They have like a machine learning all patterns option, and it'll automatically draw patterns on charts for you and give you targets based on the theoretical numbers. And on Saturday morning, randomly over coffee, I was staring at the weekly chart, and up popped a cup and handle on the weekly. Now, that cup and handle on the weekly, I sent it to you in the WhatsApp if you want to bring it up, CTO Larsson. If you go to the WhatsApp, that chart. Look at the target. This is TradingView. This is not me. This is machine learning. It's predicting 127,402.17. Okay, now if you put that in conjunction with the bullish flag that I've been tracking on the weekly on TradingView for over 3 months, had a target of 120,558. So both of those macro weekly patterns are now flashing the 120 range.
I have had
That's
very
what I
bad.
looked at. That's all.
I've
I
had very
looked
bad
at.
experience with the all patterns indicator.
Yeah, all patterns. If you go to indicators, then you go to technicals. All patterns on the right. Patterns. There we go. You had it. There, that's it.
I don't
There,
like it.
Look at
I just
those. Look at
have
the
to say
targets.
that.
Look at the targets. Look at the targets. CTO Larsson at the top.
So why don't you like?
I know,
CTO?
but it's not the cap and handle until it has confirmed But
Not saying cup and handle. See there?
I know. I think it's not correct, but by all means, I feel that this particular implementation, it always results in a wedge. This particular time, it has resulted in something else, so that's an improvement, but it isn't a cup and handle yet. So
I just run on this. I've been using these this all chart patterns ever since I had TradingView on my space, and heard how they were actually implementing this. And
yeah, I hate it. I think it's not working, and yeah. But it's good we have different perspectives.
Yeah, let's watch this though. Keep this up now. You can see where their targets are. See on the bullish flag and the cup and handle are at between 120 and 127 at the top there. You see of your screen.
Yeah.
Let's keep that open. Let's watch
a handle before it's a cup and handle.
Unbelievably accurate. This indicator.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's find out. Like, if you tell me there's 127K target for Bitcoin.
But anybody on the show, just to be sure, you need to get TradingView Pro. It's not on the regular TradingView, and it's under technicals, patterns, all patterns, and you can disable patterns you don't like. If there's something that you don't like, I don't want to know the bearish signals. You can turn it off.
Since I'm streaming this also on my channel, I want to say that I recommend extreme caution with that one because it's not great, if I put it mildly. I love TradingView, so I'll keep my opinions moderated, but yeah, it has improvement potential, I would say.
Could we bring up the ETH chart? Because I think that's the kind of the next topic, and the next big thing this week is that we've seen Nate Garachi, who's a very well-known ETF analyst in the space since the ETF is coming this week. You've seen some pretty bullish headlines this week about tokenization happening on ETH. You saw Goldman Sachs came out and said they're going to do 3 tokenized funds by the end of this week. You saw MakerDAO said they're going to invest $1 billion in tokenized treasuries and could partner up with BlackRock there. So some interesting stuff happening on ETH. How do we feel about ETH going into the ETF this week? It's rallied kind of on par with Bitcoin and Solana today, which means it's keeping up. Obviously, it's underperformed over the last few weeks, particularly versus Solana. What are the charts telling you there, CTO?
Yeah, what's shocking is how little is happening with Ethereum. All this is coming out like the ETF around the corner, all this bullish news, the tokenization. Let's bring up the exciting chart. Turns out that absolutely nothing has happened with Ethereum since October 2023, almost a year ago. So if we're looking at the ETH to BTC chart, so we're kind of eliminating the US dollar speculative noise. We're just looking at the project in relation to Bitcoin. It has been completely flat, ranging, faked out a few times in both directions, but literally nothing has happened. And even now, where it feels like something should happen, cause a big breakout or something, it is not really happening. We're just copying the Bitcoin price movements for now. So that's what I'm seeing here. It's still ranging. Nothing has really happened.
Yeah, it does feel. I mean, you had ETHCC last week, which is one of the major ETH conferences, which happened in Brussels. The main headlines, to be honest, coming out of that were just security issues rather than actually anything going on. Like, you compare that to the headlines that you normally see coming out of something like Solana Breakpoint, and it was very slow. It felt as though people were waiting for a narrative. There was talk about L2s. There was some talk about improvements to the staking mechanism by Vitalik. I think he did his speech on that. But there wasn't that slew of headlines that made you get super bullish on ETH. I know your view here, James. So, yeah, what was your view on that whole conference and maybe the outlook for ETH short term?
It was hilarious. I think the best quote of the week was, "After 10 years, the chain is nearly usable." And that was you just can't make that up. It's just a painful thing to use. I go back to same principles. 15 TPS isn't going to cut the future. L2s are not a solution. They're a Band-Aid. And we can see exactly where the direction is going. And there's so much talk of RWA and tokenization of everything and moving exchanges like stock exchanges to blockchain. I think that's what BlackRock will probably do in Texas as to compete against NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. That will be huge. And the question is, which chain will they use to run it? And we know one chain always had that vision in mind anyway. So it's strange. The conference is weird, but shout out to Vitalik. I think he arrived on the bus in the rain and got up on stage. Nobody expected him to come. I hope he didn't get the flu as a result of that, because if you do ever get wet and you go into an air-conditioned environment, you will get sick. It's just...
He got cancelled, actually. He got semi-cancelled for saying he was triple vaxxed and being very pro-vaccines just after the conference, because he was seen wearing a mask on the plane, or at least he promoted wearing a mask on the plane, and then said was very, very pro coronavirus vaccines. And honestly, the timeline hated it. If they weren't bearish on ETH before that, they got very bearish afterwards. I do think RWAs is the strongest possible narrative for ETH here. It becomes more the institutional chain. You know, they have this window here where people like BlackRock are, you know, they've got hundreds of millions of dollars now in that build fund. And if Goldman Sachs is going to tokenize, I imagine they will tokenize on ETH by the end of this. So they still have this window, but it is closing fast, particularly if Trump comes to office and the SEC is under the cosh that we seemingly have heard in these legal battles. I know you're obviously a Solana bull too, Marty. Do you have a different view there at all?
Yeah, let me catch up. As far as Ethereum goes, once again, I'm a little contrarian. I don't really watch the news I don't figure the news much in my decisions as others. I look at Artemis for on-chain data. I've been doing this for a while. I had Artemis also on the space, just a terrific project. If you don't know them, Artemis XYZ. You can look at the TVL of Ethereum, right? It's up at, 60 billion? It's actually come down quite a lot, but it's around 60 billion versus Solana at around 5 billion, okay? But the fees right now, Solana has just passed Ethereum, validated fees. And more importantly, the revenue, Solana has now caught Ethereum. So Solana is making equal amount. If you just look at it as a business, okay, let's be real. It's just a business. The business of Ethereum is making as much profit on 60 billion as Solana is making on 5. And that should be priced in, and it will be. How much of an effect? I'm calling 200 billion on Solana market cap soon. So I'd say we're going to jump to about half Ethereum. What's Ethereum's future? I mean, you know my feeling. No one uses it on my community, at least. We're all traders. I mean, we use Base a little bit, but L2 is just the permissionless sequencer. It's not a solution. Like you said, it's a Band-Aid. I think that there are some projects like Metis, and obviously Zeus on the Solana side, which are in a huge race that people aren't even aware of. In the engineering circles, we follow it. You know, Anatoly and the open source and Mert. This is like the big thing, is who's going to deliver the first permissionless mainnet bridge. Remember, L2 on Ethereum right now is permissioned. The entire structure sits on top of a wallet of Ethereum, which backs the entire market cap of Polygon or Optimism or Arbitrum. And there's a security council which manages that multi-sig wallet, and they can change the policies at any time. So literally a couple of humans can have access to the entire backing of the current L2s. It's a huge risk in crypto as far as we're all concerned. So to create a permissionless version of that, where no humans can touch it, is going to be the race. Whoever nails that potentially could solve Ethereum's problem, but also introduce Bitcoin on Solana, which I think is the bigger narrative coming into the summer. Bitcoin on Solana is going to become the biggest narrative in crypto, other than stablecoin, which I think is the unicorn.
Who's your favorite player to pull that off? Is Zeus?
I think Metis on the Ethereum side, and Zeus, and then obviously Stacks. Don't discount Stacks. They've had a lot of long time. They're early into this. They've had a long time to work it out. They have the Nakamoto upgrade just about to come out, which is going to be their first sort of mainnet implementation of a faster programming language rebuild, so they can get the benefits of multi-threading and things like that to bring down settlement time radically to a couple of seconds. If that's successful, I think Stacks is going to have a chance. But I'm a big fan of Zeus. I think that it's backed by Munib and Anatoly. So the Stacks founder and the Solana founder have backed this project. It's been run as pure open source with a TGE, a pure token generation event, the most cutting edge of all projects. And they're rapidly building in Asia a permissionless bridge, which they're rolling out at Solana speed, which makes me think that they've got a lot of that sort of Solana Foundation leadership, the ability to scrum and build fast and put things out, and try and break things and get a hackathon going ASAP. I feel like the Zeus network, which they call a layer 1.5. So what they did is they took the Solana validator code and they modified it to create a separate network which talks to native Bitcoin. So they've kind of made a Stacks with Solana. The benefits are Solana is just so tested under load. It's the only blockchain to really go through the iterations of repairs to fix for scale. We just saw it with the whole liveness test of meme coins. And so I think Solana version 1.8 is the cutting edge of high performance blockchains, and Zeus is using it. And so they're going to have that massive benefit over Stacks. And they have the leadership of the Solana Foundation, which you all know, you can have the best technology, but if you don't have the best leadership, it really doesn't equate. You have to have both. And I think we're going to see that rapid, road mapping in Zeus through the Apollo network they just created, where all of a sudden, native Bitcoiners are going to be able to participate in Solana DeFi. What does that mean? It means you can make yield on your Bitcoin, right? It's not just an asset sitting in your wallet and you're hoping for Germany to stop selling and for, Trump to win. That's the only way the price moves. They can participate in yield. They can give a couple of Bitcoin to a shitcoin LP if they want. They can put it into Sol USDC and make some passive income on a stable coin. I think it's going to open the door to a monstrous explosion in liquidity on Solana. And I think that's Solana Summer. To me, this project is positioning itself to, together with USDC stablecoin on Solana, to be just an absolute metamorphosis in the market cap of Solana.
Look, I think bridges have been a big impediment really to crypto. Like you said, they have massive issues with security. I think probably over 50% of all hacks happen around bridges for that exact reason. So if they can fix that, and particularly obviously bring
the security PDF. I just read a security PDF that in 2023, 88% of exploits and violations on chain were on Ethereum, and the majority being through Solidity, which is, I've been saying it for years as a user of Solidity back in 2018. In the beginning. It's not a very well-written programming language. It's not a Move or a Rust. It's very vulnerable. And that's, to me, the biggest risks are those L2 multi-sig wallets and the Solidity programming language. Those are the problems with Ethereum. Also, I think Ethereum has a bipolar problem, right? Is it a store of value? Is it an execution layer? Well, it's kind of in the middle, and no one really knows. So it seems like Bitcoin is the better store of value and Solana is the better execution engine. So Ethereum either needs to pick a side or rewrite entirely in a modern programming language. That's my perspective.
I think it's got its shot now to be like the institutional chain in terms of adoption. But I agree with you that there are long-term questions about what Ethereum is trying to be. Because it's moved away from being as usable as people would like it to be. We've already kind of touched upon Solana, but I guess there were fewer stories this week other than TVL has been increasing pretty rapidly, particularly in stablecoins, and particularly PayPal. PayPal has now become the 7th biggest US stablecoin. It's nearing upon $1 billion of TVL. It's been growing very, very rapidly, and particularly on Solana. CTO, do you maybe want to bring up the Solana the chart to what you're viewing there?
Absolutely.
But I just thought this was interesting as kind of a dark horse in stablecoins. As we start to see, more and more restrictions on others, it feels as though PayPal will be championed by a lot of governments around the world.
I'm so happy. We will talk. Let's talk about. These are two great things. So, Solana first. Then, I think that I zoomed out a little bit here, so we kind of see what has really been going on. Solana had this huge rally in predominantly 2021, and then it was this long downtrend. It bottomed. James famously bought the bottom exactly, I think, and then Solana went into this uptrend, and then it kind of has been in a consolidation phase, and it's still in that consolidation phase. For clarity, I'm on the sold to BTC chart. I feel that in so many altcoins, it's much easier to figure out what's going on here because we filter away the speculative noise of Bitcoin, and we're just comparing the two projects instead. And the key support in the Solana chart is this 0.002. Because I think a lot of big players, they're actually trading the sold to BTC chart. They're not trading the sold to USD chart. So it was resistance back in 2022 many times. Then 2020, exactly beginning of 2024, in January, it became support. And it's been support so many times. And it's still holding. So I think that's the only thing that matters in this chart. This support is still holding. It's just a consolidation phase. Should this support break, okay, then it's a different situation. But right now it hasn't. Solana is looking great. And we actually got the support also on the USD chart, which we didn't have before. It was kind of a little bit messy on the USD chart, but we got the very clear support also on the USD chart at 127. It has held as well. Should that break, it would look really ugly, but it hasn't. Support has held, and this chart also looks strong. But I think the chart really to monitor for Solana is the sold to BTC chart, and it looks great. Support holding, everything looks great. Then the other topic about the stable coins. Now, there's no chart for stable coins. I just say that I think it's so good. It is so good for crypto. I think a lot of people underestimate the impact it will have if you can actually use PayPal and Stripe to pay for stuff because every internet shop in the universe, they use either PayPal or Stripe, almost. And if they are actually having working stablecoin connection that you can pay with stablecoin and buy whatever stuff you want to buy, your shoes or your new camera or something, I think it will really fuel the whole crypto economy around the world. If sitting in Western Europe or US maybe feel like it doesn't really matter, but it will matter a lot if you can pay with US dollar denominated stablecoins around the world to buy for stuff on the internet. That's where crypto started. It was electronic cash, and perhaps it will be implemented this way. So I absolutely love this development, and I'm monitoring it very closely.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, just you go, James. I thought it's going to probably head towards the top 3 or 4, I reckon, here, like in terms of adoption. And I think Solana is going to be where you see the majority of that happening.
Yeah, I think what's stunning about this is the sheer capacity and how much it grew in just 1 week. It went from $180 million to $550 million in just a very short window of time. And remember as well, a lot of people now use, like those that have to make micropayments and transfers, even though they're not that familiar with crypto or blockchain, etc., they're figuring out a way to send money around the world. So when you look at I think there's some report on the actual stablecoin transactions, it's all solved, but they're all very small dollar amounts. So that'll be an exciting place to watch as well going forward.
So I think we've lost Marty. I think his connection probably went. But the other thing to mention was we'll finish off the crypto section, which I thought was an interesting one. Was this report which came out with the 20 top projects that are going to happen over the second half of this year. We saw people farming Blast. You saw people farming various Solana apps so far in the first half of this year. The biggest ones, it looks like, coming up in the second half of this year, if you're looking for outsized returns, I think Monad steps out. Bearer Chain, a lot of people have been talking about. Hyperliquid has been one, which has been all over my timeline, which is this week, which is the perp platform There are no VCs in that one, so a lot of people who are trading on Hyperliquid are looking for a $1 billion plus airdrops that could be coming out of that one. But I thought this was an interesting list. I think a lot of people maybe were disappointed with some of these returns. But you can still, if you get in early to some of these, you can still have decent returns. So I think this is an interesting list to be looking at in my kind of memes and dreams section here. This is something that popped out for me. And I think finally, as we go into the macro section, this chart really popped out to me this week. Is the correlation between crypto and the S&P 500 is at the lowest level it's been kind of since this has been looked at. So since 2019 on the block. It's also incredibly low for the NASDAQ, very similarly, and low for gold. You're actually seeing negative correlation. So, and we kind of have realized this, crypto's been going slightly lower, even though stocks have been going materially higher. Do you think this continues, James? I know you kind of are across both, and I think it's very interesting to look across both, but this breakdown of correlation, I think, has been kind of crazy to witness.
It is, and I've been studying like NASDAQ, just QQQ Bitcoin correlation since the beginning of time in the last 3 years. I think the most important thing is sometimes people get bogged down on things like dominance and correlations, etc. It is important to look at, but you also have to understand they don't run at the same time, which is actually good for us traders, because if everything ran at the same time, it would be so difficult to make money. But this is probably the most important chart is QQQ Bitcoin returns. So this is the average set of returns. You can see where QQQ is, and far to the right, the red line is the Bitcoin returns. So the point of this chart is, even though there is no correlation right now, and yes, over the last 65, 75 days, Bitcoin is lagging the QQQ, it still smashes it in returns over time. So that's the message there.
Yeah, I feel like,
Welcome back, Marty.
I feel like we could be here for a period where correlation with stocks could remain low. Like I think crypto could be rallying no matter what stocks do here, because we've got a bit of a catch up to do, given we had all this German supply to get through and a couple of other pockets of supply. But now if that clears, then that technical trade clears up, and sentiment is still very, very low. We're not even close to greed on the fear and greed index, where I think it was the lowest sentiment even last week for over 18 months. It feels as though we have a catch up trade here, which I think could see correlation remaining relatively low.
Yeah, and I did share something actually in the chat. So Larry Fink was on CNBS a few minutes ago, shilling Bitcoin. You have the T-Man shilling Bitcoin. You've got like many tailwinds right now. It's incredible. You got the Korean news, the Chinese news, the Russian news. I mean, it's a special time. And the banana zone's coming September, October, maybe even earlier. So we're still middle of July. So maybe
CME FedWatch right now, they're predicting now a rate cut it's 96% for September, now almost 60% for October, 56% for November, and 50% for December. That's four cuts, 400.
Exactly, and these are the projections as well. There's a cut is coming in September, which is going to be massive, and then after that, once they burst the bubble, the cuts will be very quick after that, especially when they look at the huge deficits of $1.5 trillion of interest expenses. And then the money printer happening at the same time. It's just a perfect storm of macro goodness behind us right now.
I agree 100%. Can I show one chart here, which I think illustrates this? Because I agree 100% with what both of you said here, or all of you. These are yields. So these are the US government 2-year yield. And there was this key level. First, it was resistance, then it was support, then it hesitated, and then it's a massive breakdown that you can see here. So that means that the market now think that we will get more rate cuts than the market thought just a week ago. 2 weeks ago. So I think exactly like Marty said, there's a catch up here. Many markets have rallied on this development, but crypto has not. It has kind of dumped instead. So I also think there's a catch-up opportunity here. And I think it's looking good. Because usually when this happens, when the yield chart looks like this, the speculative assets rally, which all assets have done except crypto right now. And I think they will. It's just delayed. That's my reading on this.
yeah, to give a bit of backdrop to the macro picture, we actually saw CPI come in as a month-on-month deflation last week, which was I think has only happened since 2020. So we are now touching upon 3% year-on-year inflation, and it's coming down very, very rapidly. Powell said last week that he would move before we hit a 2% inflation target. So we're now looking at probably 2, maybe even 3 cuts this year, which would be, this is obviously taking macro to all-time highs, and then you have I think the Trump effect happening this morning. I want to switch towards Tesla a little bit here, because I think it's become even more of a topical stock. It kind of continued its rally and then had a little bit of a dip on the idea there could be delays to robo-taxis late last week, and then Elon came out of the weekend, supported Trump, and you've had this big rally again this morning. James, what do you make of things happening over there at the moment?
Yeah, I think institutions are underweight. They see the writing on the wall. Even if they start appraising just energy only, it'll go up. And they're just so far behind. 47% of the stock is held by retail investors. The most retail dominant stock on the face of the planet, which is super interesting. There is no other stock that has more retail investors than this stock, because for the first time ever in the world, retail investors understand more than Wall Street, which is a great opportunity, which is why we all make these shows, to help others as best we can. We don't know what it is. I don't know if it's an endorsement. I don't know if it's a regime change. I don't know if it's the fact that Elon Musk hasn't come out and said 8.8 is not happening. So people are like, when's he going to say why it's not happening? And he hasn't said that. So maybe 8.8 is still on. We don't know.
What is 8.8, just to give a little bit of context to it?
8.8 is the robotaxi launch date, where they will showcase the app, the vehicle, the vision, how people can use it. And basically the easy way to think about it is, imagine buying a car for $25,000 or $30,000, and that car makes you $300,000. And imagine having 10 of them, you get $3 million. So that is, you can become your own taxi fleet at a very, very low cost of ownership, running a car at about 25 cents every 1.6 kilometers, 1 mile. And that is a game changer to transportation globally. And that's what's coming. The question is when.
Decentralization of transportation.
Yeah,
Pardon?
Which would be
It's
wild.
like decentralization of transportation. It's like the democratization of the ability to own the taxi company, right?
Yep.
There was
a whole new business model.
There was a quite divisive report out I saw on Friday, which I think caused the move low, which is by UBS, which continues to have its auto analyst do the analysis on Tesla, even though everyone's screaming that it's not just an auto stock. What did you make of that, James, the criticisms there?
From UBS?
Yeah.
Oh, they're comical fellows. Let me show you the guy, first of all. This Patrick Hummel. Success rate 52%. So my rule of thumb is, if you're not winning 80% of your trades, you're not going to make it. So there's so much. It's just like within the media, the analyst world. I actually will be doing a video on Tesla analysts and just show you how clueless they are. It's going to be quite hilarious. But yeah, broken clock, right only half the time. That's not good enough for me.
I call him the Gareth Salloway of TradFi.
Yeah.
These guys have like the lowest success rates, yet people listen to them. I have no idea why.
Yeah, and I wish people could, there's like a meme where somebody's trying to put a triangle into a round circle or something, drooling. It's exactly what these guys, where they're challenged, because they think they're dealing with a car company and not an AI company, and that's where everything breaks down and falls apart.
He is the auto analyst, which I thought was hilarious. And he's the guy with the sell. Well, yeah, obviously you think it's overvalued for an auto stock. It's probably worth, I think it's still worth leagues more than all the other auto stocks combined, right? Like you're gonna find it overvalued if you're just looking at an auto company.
I mean,
the final
segment,
point,
I think people also don't realize the gigafactories. The gigafactory is literally one of the greatest inventions of all time. Forget about the cars and all that. It's a self-sustainable factory. And in my opinion, it's built to make microchips. I'm putting it out. You heard it here first. I think Elon, there's a single point of failure in the industry, and that's NVIDIA. And now we know Taiwan, TSM, the whole war is about the fact that There's 4 lithography machines in the world. They're all made out of Holland, and it's all a race to own them. And I believe that Elon Musk will bring microchips in-house, and that's going to be just between AI, X, Tesla, Starlink, which is the second internet, right? Decentralized internet, running most of the defense systems of the world right now. This is a bigger thing than you can ever imagine when he pulls this together. Tesla is the best entry of all time in the 200s.
You touched upon the kind of final point that we wanted to talk about, which is AI. There's been a lot of talk. There was a piece out by Sequoia, who's probably one of the best known private equity firms, VC firms on the West Coast, talking about the AI revenue gap, that we're going to need to see 600 billion of revenue from AI companies, particularly those that are spending on these chips in the second half of this year. And we're going to have to see trillions of dollars come from AI revenue, at least, from these companies over the coming years. And at the moment, we haven't really seen it. AI revenue is really being shown up in the hardware manufacturers, NVIDIA being the obvious one. And all these other companies are really just spending tons of CapEx on this. And they've found a way to basically use their cash balances effectively, because they don't have to run these down that bad with depreciation. What do you think of this, Marty? Do you think AI is a show me story? Do you believe?
I mean, I heard Chamath go on about this on the All In podcast on the weekend, right? I'm a big fan of Chamath. I think he's a really smart guy. He also indicates that, AI is one of those things where $1 trillion has gone into investment and it's currently at a loss. It's made zero impact to any company's bottom line in efficiency or new product growth. So, but then on the other side, I can see the fact that it hasn't really matured to a point where it can start to do so. I think just as animation disrupted the motion picture industry at the box office, we're going to see AI disrupt streaming television. It just takes one Netflix show that's AI generated that has cost 1/25th, a fraction of what it costs to produce a real television show, and the whole industry will change to AI, and then you'll see these revenues. So, and for manufacturing, the same thing. I think that Elon Musk will probably, with his gigafactories, be the first to prove the efficiencies of AI in manufacturing, things like this. And then Big Pharma has just only started to experiment with AI in the discovery of vaccines. That's the big news, is now they're using AI in vaccine development, which I trust computers way more than humans. So I like that. I think that we're just in the early days of AI adoption. It's kind of going through that early development, early testing, call it a test net. We're in the test net of AI right now, of machine learning. I think with the Moore's law, NVIDIA, the chips getting faster, memory, the CPU moving to the memory, we're getting exponential growth. Then you're getting new programming languages. You're getting industry begging for technology and regulation easing. We're going to get a unicorn moment.
Can I say something? I think that we're going to see exactly what happened with all other previous major technology shifts. Say internet comes. Internet is fantastic. Everyone realized that, oh, wow, this could really become something. Then we're going to get a lot of garbage, because the business case for every company in the world becomes, we're going to be an internet company now. We're going to buy stuff. And then the share value goes up. And that's exactly what we're seeing now with AI. Every company in the world is saying we're transforming into an AI company. So we bought a lot of NVIDIA hardware. That's what we have done. Great, says all the investors. Share price goes up 100%. Everyone make bonus. Everyone gets rich. And then comes after that the stage. Oh, he actually has to make money on this also. And turns out that, it wasn't that obvious. And we're going to get a lot of pets.com and so on and so forth. And then there's going to come some companies that really make it and really succeed with this transition, but most won't. So I think that there will be a revenue gap, which will realize into bankruptcies or stock price crashes for the companies that are using the internet. And then some companies will be optimally positioned to really take advantage of this. Nvidia being the obvious one, but now it has rallied a little bit, and then there will be some other companies like that.
Also, one last point before to catch up on that. Carry on.
Just to close the point there. So on Tesla, I am not interested in Tesla as a car manufacturer. Building physical products is a pretty bad business model, because the moment you do something well, everyone else is going to copy you. They're going to try to do it perhaps at the same cost, only they don't have the cost of the R&D, so they can perhaps undercut you a little bit. But if Tesla can actually do something with AI and all the data that they have collected and turn that into a software-based business, like the fleet management, if they can run robotaxis, but no one else can run robotaxis because the AI isn't good enough, that's a business model that I love. And that's why I am interested. I'm not interested in Tesla as a manufacturer of physical cars. So it's all connected to AI, and I think Tesla could be one of those companies that actually come out on top. They're also buying NVIDIA hardware, but they might actually be able to use them, unlike many of the other companies.
Exactly. They have a real use case, and that's the most interesting thing. But the numbers are fascinating. Amanda, thank you for raising this point. In 2023, the industry spent $50 billion on NVIDIA chips, and they only made $2.5–3 billion in revenue. This year, they're spending north of $100 billion, and because of the commoditization of AI, they might make even less revenue. So you need that real-world use case that solves real problems.
Well, I can do a final point before we move on from AI, and that is that there's in macro we look at two separate, in crypto and macro. There's a sort of two paths are merging finally in the categorization. In AI, the benefits of AI are efficiency reduction. So you save money, which is how you make money. And then innovation, obviously new businesses, new business practices, robotaxi, etc. Where AI has not really benefited anybody yet is in efficiency. And that's where we thought it was going to. We thought everyone would get a smart calculator and be more efficient. And they'd write documents faster and be more efficient. But it hasn't really affected earnings. I predict next year we will start to see an effect. But on a moral perspective, a political perspective, the reduction in the workforce by robotics and AI is quite contradictory to their entire policy. It's not good for humans. Humans are going to lose their jobs. Let's be clear. So politically and morally, how is AI going to fit in with the reduction of jobs? In other words, a lot more people are going to lose their jobs. And AI and a lot more CEOs are going to get richer, and shareholders. So it's going to push the 1% instead of creating equity. So I think if Trump becomes president, AI will go nuts.
I think you've all made some great points. I do think there's been clearly an overspend, but everyone has to overspend, because if you're not going to keep up. And there's obviously going to be some people who underperform in that, converting it into revenue, and we're going to see a similar move to .com. I think Tesla seems like it's in a good spot in all those scenarios. James, I was wondering, is there any other companies that, I know you've obviously had this public, move from NVIDIA into Tesla. Are there any other companies you're tracking which you think will do well here? Obviously, we've touched upon different industries. Is it pharma? Is it defense? Is there any other companies you're like, wow, like they're being undervalued here as actually the true industries that will be able to capture AI better than perhaps putting your money into big tech right now?
Yeah, there's nothing. So if you step back and look at the S curves that are colliding, you've got energy storage, bots, autonomy, robot taxis, all that type of stuff, all colliding at once. There's only one player that has an insurmountable lead for the next 3 to 5 years, and that's Tesla. And that fits well with my strategy, because I don't like spreading things around. I like to have very, very concentrated, go for the jugular type bets. That's how I invest.
Well, Rob Powell's 90% Solana right now.
Well, I think there's obviously a beauty in having big bags, which you look at very, very closely, and you follow them very, very closely. I'm a big believer in that too. All right, gents. Yep. Well, I think this was a great week.
Can I say one more thing? Because I think it's important. And I think James will love it. If I can share the screen, just one, I promise, 30 seconds. MicroStrategy. James, one of your favorites.
Yeah.
And MicroStrategy is right now on the verge of completing a symmetrical triangle, continuation triangle, or pennant. And if it does, it gets another strong point of argument for MicroStrategy as such, of course, but for Bitcoin as a whole. So it's a key event, and it could happen today or this week.
And then history has shown me over the past 35 years that there's a pre-split run, and there's 10-for-1 stock split coming in 3 weeks. So there'll be a run before that too as well. So
predictions for next week. Predictions for next week's show. Anyone? Predictions?
We nailed them this week. I feel like. My personal view is this rally continues. I think we've now got even more tailwinds, as James said, and the positioning of this is why I felt it so beautiful. Like getting into a trade like this, where it was so perfect. You have this perfectly bullish macro fundamental setup and this bearish short-term technical setup. I think it's more than just a 5% move. I wouldn't be in this just for, we've gone from 60 to 63K. I think I'd be in this to try and see if we can test all-time high. I think if we were closer to 70K or 71K, then I'd be a bit more cautious. But right now, I think there's an air gap for me all the way up till that 71K level.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is we spoke about, the no-brainer strategy is to buy under the 200-day moving average in a bull run. We're right there. Next thing in the box is the short-term holder realized price, 64,166. My forecast is we will be ahead of that next week.
Yeah, I mean, my prediction is the same. Our derivatives control the markets. I think they turned on the shorts for Tesla. We saw what happened. They turned off the shorts for Tesla. We saw what happened. They turned off the shorts for Nvidia. We saw what happened. They're turning off the shorts for Bitcoin. It's happening in real time. Last night, the JEX got updated. They're at 120,000, guys. That's where they're going. The liquidity is all above us. 23 billion on Binance alone will be liquidated. That's 23 billion of collateral Binance will take if they get the price to 72,000.
Yeah, one of the concerns, question I have for you, Mando, I know you're the moderator, but funding rates. I have a funny suspicion they're going to flip positive and the carry trade's going to come back. Thoughts? Your friends at Millennium? You're muted.
They haven't gone that aggressive yet, which again is just super bullish. They still stay relatively low. I think you will see obviously money come back into the market if we start to get a more bullish sentiment and people start to go, try and chase the market. Then you'll start to see more inflows. There's going to be a positive reflexivity to this market here, just because more bullish sentiment will mean higher funding, which will mean more inflows into the ETF to try and make money on the basis trade. That works on the way down as well, as we've seen. People get very, very bearish about the outflows we saw in May and some in June. But I think that will be very, very bullish if that returns in July and August.
And the funding rates for Solana are green across the board, which is just very bullish.
You wait till they start to do that. I mean, it will be really interesting to see if Athena, which has done this on ETH, they've talked about doing this on Bitcoin. They can do this anywhere. This trade, which they've made available to retail participants, and they've done USDE, the Athena stablecoin on the back of it. They could do this on Solana and Bitcoin very quickly. So I would expect to see it, if I'm honest.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mando.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys. It was amazing, really.
Great week. I think we've covered Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, macro, and we've made some predictions for next week. So I think it's CTO again next week, or I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is. But yeah, we will see you again next week. Hopefully you're with us again too, Marty. You've been great for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I work full-time during the bull run.
Act Capital.
I'll sleep in the bear run. In the bear market, I sleep.
Love it. Days off. So this is the four amigos right now.
Yeah,
that's good.
Look at that. All right, guys. I'll see you again next week. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, CTO Larsson, love your charts, bro. I love your charts, CTO.
Love you all, guys. Fantastic
guys.
show.
James, thanks for having me. Mando, you're my man. CTO Larsson, my new best friend. Let's go.
Let's go.